At exactly 4:17 a.m., inside the outbound lane of the Strait of Hormuz, a merchant tanker is doing the most dangerous thing in modern warfare, being predictable. Red lighting washes the bridge. The helmsman holds the ship inside the traffic separation scheme like it's a painted highway. AIS contacts stack behind them in a neat queue, bow to stern. Because Hormuz doesn't allow improvisation. An inbound lane, an outbound lane, and a buffer zone that turns just go around into a fantasy. Outside, sea stays calm, then the ocean hits from underneath. No missile plume, no drone buzz, no radar warning tone, no incoming scream. A violent, hull-borne shock slams up through steel. Consoles rattle. Cups explode off shelves. A deckhand is thrown into a bulkhead hard enough to open a cut. Alarms cascade. The tanker shudders, loses propulsion, and stops dead in the lane. Commerce frozen in the exact place the world cannot afford a pause. Breaking coverage now. This is mine warfare. You don't see the attack, you feel it. Here's the thesis in one line. Burn it into your head. Missiles win seconds. Mines win days. And if you think that sounds small, understand the scale. A 30-pound device can paralyze a $1 trillion supply chain. The Strait doesn't forgive hesitation, and neither do the markets watching every dot on the screen. Zoom out, and Hormuz becomes a pressure cooker. This is not open ocean where shipping can simply scatter. It's geometry with global consequences. The lanes are narrow by design, the buffer is political by necessity, and the traffic is funneled because safety and law demand order. So, one suspected mine doesn't need a second victim. One incident can freeze movement. One incident can trigger war risk clauses. One incident can stack ships outside the Gulf like cars behind a wreck you can't see. At 4:33 a.m., the tanker's master transmits a clipped call. Underwater explosion suspected. Damage unknown, requesting assistance. Those 3 words, suspected mine, detonate across the world faster than the blast. Underwriters start rewriting premiums in real time. Operators call charterers. Charterers call governments. Captains ask for escorts. Crews ask about hazard pay. And on the water, ships begin to circle and hold, burning fuel and time while executives do the math. Breaking ticker. 4:41 a.m. 2 ships behind the tanker reduce speed. 4:50 a.m. A 3rd ship announces it's holding at the lane entrance. 5:02 m. A message hits a shipping group chat. Possible mines. And in a choke point, one rumor is a naval weapon. At 5:10 a.m. hours, the crisis becomes pattern. A smaller coastal freighter maneuvering around the disabled tanker reports scraping something submerged. No detonation, but the vibration is wrong. Minutes later, a lookout spots a dark, rounded object bobbing near the lane edge, half hidden in chop like a buoy that shouldn't exist. Coordinates are marked. Photos are taken. A voice says it out loud on an open circuit. Mine-like contact. Iran denies responsibility before sunrise. State media calls it sabotage. Officials say no evidence because that's what uncertainty sounds like in a studio. But anonymous briefers, people who choose words like ammunition, say the placement looks deliberate. Not designed to score a cinematic sinking. Designed to weaponize doubt. A missile is a statement of intent. A mine is a statement of ambiguity. It forces everyone else to prove what happened while the cost keeps compounding. At 6:30 a.m., the Pentagon announces the response, and it isn't a carrier flex. Mine countermeasures forces are deploying to reopen a corridor and escort commercial traffic. And these are the slow kill specialists, the mine hunting ecosystem. Dedicated mine countermeasures ships built around sonar and procedure. Explosive ordnance disposal teams. Unmanned surface craft. Remote vehicles. And overhead, airborne sweeping. Heavy helicopters, towing gear, and long, disciplined patterns that turn miles of water into a gridded crime scene. Here's how you fight an invisible weapon, layer by layer. Step 1. Sonar search. And sound goes out, echoes come back. and the display fills with returns that could be anything. Rocks, wrecks, containers, fishing gear. Hormuz is clutter. Mines hide inside noise. Step 2. Classify. Operators tag contacts and build a priority list. Most are nothing. Some are mine-like echoes that demand verification because being wrong is fatal. Step 3. Identify. A remote vehicle drops into black water with lights and cameras, creeping toward the contact like a surgeon. You're looking for chain, casing, trigger horns, a shape that doesn't belong. Step 4. Neutralize. A charge is placed with clinical precision. The team backs off. Controlled detonation. A bubble plume rises, then the sea slaps flat again. The question becomes scrap. Step 5. Recheck. Because the enemy's favorite move is to lay another device after you declare the lane clear. Overhead, the airborne layer adds speed and pressure. An MH-53E Sea Dragon drags sweeping gear in disciplined patterns. Tow line taut, altitude steady. The crew chief watches tension gauges like a heart monitor because one cable failure can turn the ocean into breaking news. Now understand the main tension. Mines don't need to sink ships to win. They only need to impose delay. Delay spikes insurance. Delay stacks ships. Delay creates headlines. Headlines create political pressure. Move too slowly and markets punish you while critics call you indecisive. Move too fast and you gift the enemy casualties and propaganda. So before we go further, hit like if you're tracking the math. Comment Hormuz if you want the system-by-system timeline. Human anchor. You are the sonar operator. Your screen is gray-green fog. Every return is a maybe. Your job isn't heroism, it's restraint under a stopwatch. You are deck crew. Salt air, hot metal, eyes scanning a surface that looks normal. Normal is what mines hide inside. You are the helicopter crew chief, cabin shaking, tow gear humming. One mistake and the water becomes a headline. And while the slow work happens in public, the enemy's real play begins. Because the twist isn't only underwater, it's attribution. At 9:20 a.m., a second battle ignites in parallel with the mine hunt, proving who did it before the coalition fractures. They didn't know the real contest wouldn't only be clearing mines, it would be proving authorship fast enough to keep partners aligned. In a choke point crisis, legitimacy is a weapon system. If you can't show receipts, you don't get unity. You get hedging. You get we urge restraint. You get shipping companies cutting private deals. And you get the adversary's dream outcome, paralysis without firing a missile. So while mine hunters move at the pace of caution, analysts move at the pace of politics. They build an evidence package. Recovered fragments pulled from the water, time-stamped photos from patrol craft, component signatures and design tells, pattern of life charts, who sailed where, when, and why, tracking gaps, the moment something went dark, imagery of unusual loitering near lane edges. Because attribution is not a vibe, it's a case file, and every ally wants it yesterday now. Officials whisper the same warning. If proof arrives late, partners drift and the corridor collapses. Now watch the friction campaign. How a minefield keeps winning even after you start clearing. Day 1, midday. A narrow corridor is announced with language chosen like legal ammunition. Not safe, cleared to a defined standard. That difference is everything. Commercial ships hesitate anyway. Captains ask for escorts. Companies ask for guarantees no commander can honestly provide. So the mine countermeasures force does what it always does. It checks again and again, pass after pass, grid after grid. At dusk, harassment begins. Small drones appear as faint signatures, lingering at the edge of the search box. Maybe reconnaissance, maybe decoys, maybe bait. Fast boats probe the perimeter and force course changes. No shots needed. Every disruption steals minutes, and minutes become headlines. At 21:47 hours, the sonar picture coughs up the nightmare. A mine-like echo inside the outbound lane. Inside, not near the shoulder. Inside the corridor the world is waiting on. Procedure takes over. Mark the contact. Launch the remote vehicle. Lights cut through black water. The video feed is grainy and unforgiving. Then the shape resolves. Chain. Casing. A device that does not belong in a shipping lane. Mine. If you want the cold truth, here it is. The mine's best target is not steel, it's time. Neutralization is ordered. A charge is placed. The vehicle backs off. Controlled detonation. Water erupts. Shock thumps through holes like a reminder. The object is gone, but the message remains. The corridor can be contested. Human insert, because somebody has to touch this war. You are Petty Officer 2nd Class Mateo Reyes, Sonar Tech, 3 coffees deep, high hands steady on controls. Your hometown is El Paso, Texas. You FaceTimed your mother 2 days ago and told her your job was just sensors. You didn't tell her that every maybe on your screen is a decision that could put burning oil on the news. The contact list grows, the world grows impatient, and the United States keeps clearing, because hesitation is what the mine campaign sells. But here's the pressure nobody talks about on camera. Clearance standards are written in blood and litigation. Every commander knows that if you move the world too soon, you inherit the casualty report. Now, daylight operations resume. The grid expands. The corridor is rechecked. Commercial traffic waits at holding points like runners at a starting line. Then the enemy tries the next lever. Distraction. A fast boat swarm flirts with the perimeter, forcing escorts to reposition. A drone overflight lingers, just long enough to force a pause and a radio call. A rumor hits social media, unverified, but timed perfectly. And every time the mine hunters stop to address something above water, the mine campaign buys another hour. This is the friction war. No missile porn, just delay, uncertainty, and public pressure. So, type yes if you understand why this is harder than shooting down rockets. Because the world doesn't measure mine warfare by kills. It measures it by whether commerce moves. Day 2 begins with the corridor test convoy. At 6 p.m., the convoy forms like theater staged for the planet. Flagged tankers, escorts, helicopters overhead, unmanned systems sweeping ahead. Commanders on radios that can't afford a single careless word. The first transit through a cleared lane is a referendum on credibility. Allies watch, rivals watch, insurers watch, markets watch, and the adversary watches for one outcome. Proof that doubt can choke commerce. The convoy moves like cautious giants. Speed is held just high enough for control, just low enough to stop if ordered. Escorts hold station with tense patience. Helicopters arc above like metronomes. Halfway through, the moment arrives. A suspicious contact appears. Not a detonation, a return, a maybe. Now, command faces 2 doors, both labeled disaster. Door 1, halt the convoy. If you stop, you validate the mine campaign's purpose. Premiums spike again, ships stack again. Headlines say Hormuz closed, even if the corridor is technically open. Door 2, push through. If you're wrong, you don't just lose steel, you lose lives. You lose legitimacy, you lose partners. So, mine warfare gives you one move, verify. Another remote vehicle goes down. The feed is shared across command nodes. Too many eyes stare into the same dark water because everyone understands the stakes. The object resolves into jagged debris, non-uniform, no chain, no trigger horns, or the remains of something already neutralized. The corridor holds. The order goes out. Convoy, continue, and the convoy continues. The victory is quiet. Nothing happens, no fireball, no sinking, no dramatic footage, just ships moving through a place designed to make ships stop. That's why mine warfare is psychologically violent. Success looks like absence. Failure looks like history. But the campaign isn't over until the corridor can be sustained and the case file is strong enough to keep partners aligned. Because in gray zone conflict, proof is deterrence. Now we do the cold arithmetic. Mines are cheap. Clearance is expensive. A mine is a small object with an oversized effect. It doesn't have to hit again to keep costing money. Every suspected contact forces slows, stops, rechecks, and public doubt. On one side, the mine layer spends a handful of devices and a few minutes of risk. On the other side, the mine hunters spend days. Sonar passes, remote inspections, controlled detonations, helicopter sweeps, escorts, and constant verification under a global spotlight. Scorecard, what the world actually sees. Ships delayed, dozens. Premiums up, headlines non-stop. Proof required, absolute. Because in Hormuz, probably cleared is not a currency anyone accepts. Now, the final numbers. The arithmetic that decides whether the mine campaign failed or paid off. One mine, cheap. One convoy delay, expensive. One viral rumor, priceless. 1 week of hesitation, strategic. So who wins? The United States wins militarily when it reopens and sustains a corridor, when commercial traffic transits with escorts and confidence returns in measurable ways. The United States wins strategically when it proves attribution fast enough to prevent coalition drift, because unity is the force multiplier the mine campaign is trying to fracture. Iran wins economically if it buys even a week of ship queues, a week of premium spikes, a week of hesitant captains, a week of headlines that make markets flinch, and that brings us back to the opening line. Missiles win seconds, mines win days. In a missile one, the decisive moment is impact. In a mine one, the decisive moment is hesitation. Doctrine lesson. Deterrence in Hormuz isn't only retaliation, it's endurance. It's mine countermeasures ready before the first shock. It's treating attribution as an operational line of effort, because legitimacy keeps partners in line when the enemy hides behind denial. And the deeper lesson is this: the U.S. doesn't win by making a dramatic example. It wins by making the enemy's cheapest tactic fail to produce a durable effect. That means sustained corridor ops, day after day, under cameras. It means repeating the boring work until boredom returns to the shipping schedule. It means escort doctrine that turns fear into routine. It means an evidence package strong enough that partners don't peel away the moment the headlines fade. Here's the quiet victory condition. Nothing happens again tomorrow. No second shock. No new contact in the lane. No insurance spike at midnight. The corridor becomes boring, routine, forgettable. That's deterrence. Not fireworks, repetition, not punishment, persistence. And if Iran's goal was doubt, the counter is proof, escorts, and a clearance machine that never stops while cameras roll and markets breathe. Final question. Answer it like a war planner, not a spectator. Did the mine campaign fail militarily but succeed economically, at least for a week? Comment. Clear lane, if sustained corridor ops made mines a losing bet. Comment, mine days, if uncertainty did the real damage. Subscribe for the next breakdown.